Kia ora, Year 10. This video is going to go through 4 really quite full-on questions from the 2017 maths exam. So I'm going to show you the questions first. Where are we? So some of them, again, are ones that we haven't done. But so question 1 is a number question. You might want to pause the video and have a go at each of these as we look at them. Number 2 is an algebra question that is actually way easier than it looks. We just have to work out what P equals, and we've got an equation, so we do the same stuff to both sides of the equation. Question 3 we're not going to do because we haven't done parabola graphs properly yet. We don't want to rush them. And then question 4 is a linear graphs question about Vic's Vans and Rob's Rentals. So if you remember all the work you did for linear algebra, that one should be fine. And then the number 5 we don't do. And the question that I think is the trickiest in here, if you don't see how to use your trig skills, is this question number 6, which asks us to find a bearing, right? So find the bearing that Ben must maintain on some course to reach Southport. So I'm probably going to spend the most time on that video, on that part of the video, and go slowly through that. The other bits should be reasonably fast. So this will probably be a full 15 minutes. So let's look at this first question. We've got a class taking on a fundraising project, and they buy toys, 200 toys from a manufacturer, and the manufacturer usually sells them for $12 each, including GST, but he provides them to the class less GST of 15%. Hopefully all that stuff from the very start of the year is coming back into your brains. The class then package up each toy for an additional cost of $2.50 per toy, and then they have some more costs of $215 for different things. And they can sell the toys without paying any tax. So if the class sold them all and made a profit of this much, how much did they sell each toy for? So we want to do some pretty clear working for this one. So I'm going to open up, let's see, I'm going to open up a bit of space somewhere, maybe over here. Right, so the first thing we've got is that the toy cost after GST is $12, right? So that's with GST. So we know that GST is 15%, so we multiply that before GST price by 1.15. So the ex-GST toy price is going to be 12 divided by 1.15, which rounded to the nearest cent gives me $10.43, and that's per toy. We also know that we had what else? Additional costs for packaging of $2.50 per toy, and then we're going to have some fixed costs. So I guess backing up a bit, what do we have to try and figure out? Well, we've been given a profit amount, right? And profit is equal to the money they made from selling them minus the costs. And we know that they had 200 toys and that they sold them all. So we're going to end up with an equation, and the equation is going to be 2,131 is equal to 200p minus the costs, right? So the bit that I'm working on here is what are all the costs. So far we've got that the toy price is $10.43 per toy, and we've also got that the packaging price or cost, so it's not really a price, it's the packaging cost, is equal to $2.50 per toy. And then we've got $215 of fixed costs. So let's work out what the total costs are. Well, the total costs are going to be 200 times, and then it's 10.43 plus 250. Right, so that's the cost per toy. What does that give me? Let's see. That gives me $2,586. You could do that too as a separate purchase cost and packaging cost. And then we also have to add in the fixed costs of 215. So all up, that gives me costs of 2,801. So now suddenly this problem is not that bad, right? We've got our profit. Our profit is 2,131. And that's what's left over at the end. So it's going to be 200p minus the costs. So we can solve this. And what do we get? Let's see. Well, I actually did this a different way when I was working it out. So we're going to figure out these numbers. So I'm going to add this to both sides. We get 4932 must be the income. So that equals 200 times the price. And that gives me 4,932 divided by 200 for the price, which I get to be $24.66. So that's the price at which the toys are sold. So that's the first question done, and you can see that even though that wasn't too difficult to think about, it took 5 minutes to go through. So they sold each toy for $24.66. Now let's look at this algebra one, where we have to figure out what P is equal to. Okay, so we've got an equation, and P is all mixed in there. So I'm going to write that out slowly and look at how I can do some things to both sides. We've got 15x squared y cubed over t to the power of 4 is equal to 3p y t squared over 4. And the question asks us to figure out what p is. So p's all bunched up. If we just slowly undo things on this side and do the same thing to both sides, we'll get there. I'm going to start by timesing both sides by 4. And that gives me 60x squared y cubed over t to the power of 4 is equal to 3p times yt squared. Now I just want to undo some of this by dividing by 3yt squared. So we're going to have this. Dividing by this gives me this, and I've got p. Now I have to clean it up. I'm going to simplify the numbers. I get 20. I've got x squared here, y cubed here, y down here. So we're going to have y squared here, and then I'm going to have t to the power of 6 here. And that's my final answer for what p is. Yep, so work out what p equals in its simplest form, so you have to clean it up. Now the next question is a nice one about two different van companies, and we have to write the equation and then compare some costs. So let's look at what we've got. The graph is showing me the deal for Vix Vans. How much will Vix Vans charge for hiring a van? And then Rob's Rentals will supply a van for a flat fee of $125 plus 60 cents per kilometre. So we have to compare the costs of hiring for the two companies and then advise on the best option for a prospective customer. So we know that probably somewhere there'll be a crossover point, and that's what we want to be looking out for. Okay, so I'm going to start by writing the equations. The first thing I'm going to do is get the equation for Vix Vans, which is shown on the graph. So let's look here. We can see that Vix Vans has got a y-intercept of 80. So I'm going to write C. So Vix Vans, we've got C is equal to something K plus 80. So we need to find the gradient, and there's a few ways to do that. So we're looking for another blobby point, and I can see a blobby point here. That will do, or I can find another one out here. But I'm going to use just this first one that I've got. Now, what have I got? Well, I've drawn my little triangle, and I can see that I've gone out 80, but my costs have only gone up to 140. So the cost here was at 80. So my gradient here is 60 over 80, which is 3/4. So that's the equation for Vix Vans. And then for Rob's Rentals, we've got C is equal to, so I'm actually going to write that as a decimal, so 0.75K plus 80. And And Rob's Rentals will give us a flat fee of 125. So that means that we've got a plus 125 on the end, plus 60 cents per kilometre. So you can see straight away that we've got Rob's Rentals has got a higher flat fee, but it's got a lower kilometre rate. Okay, so we need to compare the costs of hiring the vans from the two companies. So let's just move over here, and we're going to write some of that down first, and then we're going to graph Rob's Rentals, and we're going to look for the crossover point or the point of intersection. So fixed vans, there's a lower fixed charge. So $80 compared to $125. So that's the first point. And then the second point is that VIX Vans, or you can do it the other way, right? VIX Vans has a higher cost per kilometre, and it's 75 cents compared to 65 cents. So now we're going to graph this other one, and we're going to look for the crossover point. So compare the costs. Oh, it actually doesn't tell us to draw the graph, but that's a really obvious thing to do, right? So we've got 125. Let's get our ruler in a minute. So 125 is actually kind of hard to put on here, but it's going to be about here. And then we're going up in 65 cents. So when I get to, let's see, 100, the cost should be 190. So I'm going out to here, and I'm going to work my way up to here. And I'm going to try and draw that graph. But before I do that, I'm actually going to kind of go backwards, and I'm going to figure out when are these two things equal, right? Because that's going to tell me exactly where they should cross over using algebra. So equal cost happens when we have 80 plus 0.75k equals 125 plus 0.6k. Cleaning this up is going to give me 0.15k here, right? Subtracting that from both sides is equal to 45, and that gives me k is equal to 45 over 0.15. So that gives me k is equal to 300. Now, I'm not sure if I've got that first graph exactly right. I'm just going to have a look, but I know someone will leave me a comment if it's not, but it looks right to me, right? So what I've done there is I've looked for the blobby points, and I've got 80. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, so we've got 80 and 60 here. So they're equal at 300 kilometres. What's the cost there? Well, I can get that by putting 300 into either one of those. Cost is 80 plus 0.75 times 300. So 80 plus 0.75 times 300 is, what have I got here? I'm having a complete brain meltdown. Let's do the other one. Oh, 300. Oh, I'm so slow tonight. Okay, so that's going to be 80 plus 225. Sorry, guys, it's been a long day. So the cost is equal to $305. So what should we do? Well, now we're going to draw the graph, and then we're going to write our final recommendation. So they're going to cross over at 300 here. Take your ruler, and we're joining up those two lines. And we're going to use a pen that's not too thick for that person out there who's getting annoyed by how thick my video pen is. I'm so sorry. Right, there we go. So what do we want to recommend? Well, for when we've got short distances, we're going to do this one here. We're going to do VIX Vans. Right, so this line here is who? This line here is Rob's Rentals. So we should hire. for